At any time, if there is any feedback or comment or issue about your attendance, please let me know the day itself so that I can correct the attendance in the sheet. Let's proceed. We have been talking about the IP addressing and especially about the IP protocol. In the earlier class, we have looked very clearly the header structure or the IP datagram fragment format. Yes, we have dealt with almost every point except the IP fragmentation and reassembly. That is exactly the second row on the screen, right? So this one we haven't spoken about, and I also promised that I'll talk about this. So I'll fulfill the promise today. Moving on. Right. So what exactly happens in the IP fragmentation? Graphics is given by the author of the presentation. You could see there is a packet, probably a PDU, is coming from the transport layer, all right, from one router to another router, right? Now, between this router and this router, there is a link. So based on the maximum transfer unit of this link, okay, you can see what is maximum transfer unit, that is MTU. So different links will have different MTUs, right? So in this case, this MTU, let's assume that it is smaller. So what happens? The whole of this segment has to be broken into different segments before it is transmitted. Otherwise, what's going to happen? The data link layer protocol in this specific link will simply drop the packet. Okay, it's not going to be forwarded because it's too much. Just assume that a lorry can carry, let me say, 15 tons of cement. All right. So the 15 tons of cement cannot be given on a mini lorry or probably a load auto. You got the logic. So whatever can be carried by the data link layer protocol only can be sent. Otherwise, it's going to say, "I'm sorry, boss, I cannot go ahead." Right. So now this is the max, one of the segments which is coming from one router to another router. What could be the data link layer protocol here? Some XYZ protocol. Now it comes to this router. Based on the maximum transfer unit of this link, the packet has to be fragmented or it can be sent. So in this example, this link does not support the bigger size of packet. Hence, the packet has to be fragmented. So this router does the datagram fragmentation, okay, at the network layer. Now you can see some blue color on screen on this packet. This blue color represents the IP header. Every of the fragment must have the IP header. Please remember, when you from this router, when it is coming, there will be IP header for the whole of the packet. Now this is broken into three different pieces. They all will have their own IP header. All right, the IP header will be included with all the source IP, destination IP, and all the fields. Right. So every of the fragment will have at least 20 bytes of IP header. Right. Please remember. Now in this case, based on the MTU size, this fragment is made into three different fragments and it is sent. What happens further? Somehow there that reaches the destination. At the destination site, these fragments are reassembled. All right. So the fragments are reassembled and it is processed and then sent to the transport layer. This is what happening in IP fragmentation and reassembly. All right. Now, what are the uses or sorry, how do you say that the particular field called 16-bit identifier, flag, and offset fields, how do they help this fragmentation? Please remember, this is the original PDU or original segment comes from the previous router. Now that segment is broken into three different segments, and these three segments belong to the same packet. Please remember, at the receiver side, these three have to be reassembled to bring out this packet. Okay, so these two should be same, and then that's the reason you have got something called identifier and other fields. So probably this screen will help you to understand this more, right? So you have got as an example, you have got the actual datagram having size 4000 bytes. All right, please remember 4000 bytes are coming, and the maximum transfer unit of the link, that particular link, is 1500 bytes. Okay, which means it cannot carry beyond 1500 bytes. All right, it will accept only 1500 bytes from the network layer. So it indicates that this 4000 bytes of datagram has to be broken into at least three. All right, 1500 plus 1500 is 3000, and then another 1500, 4500. Yeah, so it has to be at least broken into three pieces. And I also said it must carry, every of the fragment must carry 20 bytes of IP header. So effectively, a 4000 byte datagram can be broken into 1480 plus 1480 and the rest. All right, hope you got the logic, right? Because 20 bytes are needed for IP header. Put together 1500, 480 plus 20 gives you 1500. That is the maximum transfer unit. So here, this particular fragment having 4000 bytes in bytes has to be broken into three different pieces. So in this example, it is broken into three different pieces. All right, so that the length of the field, the length of the total field, total datagram will not exceed 1500 bytes. All right, so what is the usage of identifier? In this example, all these three packets are given the same ID called X. Okay, it could be a number. For example, 700 is the ID of this segment. So this particular packet having ID of X is broken into three different segments. All of them have the same ID of X. First point. Okay. Second one is about the fragmentation flag. So flag contains two values. Okay, it's a single bit flag. It could be either 0 or 1. What does it indicate? When you have a flag bit as 1, it indicates that more fragments are following. For instance, in this example, probably I'll see whether I can use the pen here. Yes, I can use the pen. All right. So look at this. So this is the ID of this packet. All right, and that ID has to be given in all the packets. All right, and then fragmentation flag. So what is the logic? This is the first fragment, this is the second fragment. This flag bit of 1 indicates that there are more fragments following, because it has got another fragment. Okay, and this also indicates there are more fragments following because it has got another fragment. Because this is the last fragment, the fragment bit is 0. So the fragment flag indicates that whether this is the last segment or more segments are following. Yesterday I spoke about this with the example of train. Okay, the train in the last compartment, you will have a int symbol or X mark, which indicates no more compartments are following, no more boxes are following, right? So same logic. If the flag is 0, then the receiving side IP protocol will understand this is the last fragment of that. So it is not going to search for further packets. Okay. All right. So what will happen if the packets are coming out of order? Please remember, so IP is a connectionless protocol, and it also can use the packet switching, right? Because it uses packet switching, the packets may take different route. So in this example, packet 1 may arrive first, packet 3 may arrive second, and then the packet 2 may come. So at the receiver side, the arrival order is 1, 3, and 2. What will happen? But they have to be arranged in 1, 2, and 3. So how can this be solved? You have got something called offset field. Okay, offset says at what place the next packet starts. All right, sir. So okay, this is the original fragment, and it is broken into three pieces. Need not be equal in size. Maximum for they are fragmented. Assume that this is 10, this is 20, and this is 30th bit. Just for instance, I'm saying. Now, this packet is at the 0th place. This packet's first byte starts at 20, and it has got first byte starting at 30. Now, once they are received at the receiver in this order, the packets are taken and the offset field is calculated, is verified. Once the offset field is 0, that indicates that that is the first segment. Okay, and then once you have got 185, what is this 185? You have got 1480 as the bit size. So if you divide this by 8, I think you will get 185. 1 and then 68, uh, then um, 5 8s are 40. Yeah, 185, which means the whole size is 1480, and the next packet starts at 185th byte. All right, so the whole this value is taken and the whole bytes of information is divided by 8 to give number here. Now the next offset will be 370, and it also indicates this is the last flag. So the receiver will understand that this is the first one, this is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one. It will understand and then it will rearrange it at the receiver side. All right. So now I think you have we have made it clear the usage of the identifier, flag bits, and the offset field. Okay. Yeah. So 1408 bytes is in the data field, and offset is calculated in such a way that the total size divided by 8. Okay. This is how your fragmentation and reassembly happens. Hope I have made it clear. And you may raise if you have got any questions here. All right. So even offline, you can take, you can talk to me for more clarification. Moving on to the IP addressing, so we have done sufficient assignments on the IP addressing. I also can post a few questions for you to do the self-assessment, maybe when I find time. So I'm not going to deal because we already spent 4 hours in talking about IP addressing. But some of the points which I deliberately missed out when I was talking about IP addresses, because I need to talk about NAT and other related stuff, right? So there are certain IP addresses are called as private IP addresses. Okay, for instance, in class A, okay, this is in class A, this is in class B, in class C. So in class A, 10.0.0.0/8 block of IP address is called private IP address. Okay, similarly in class B you have got 12, in class C you have got 16. What are they? Why are they called as private IP addresses? Do we have something called public IP addresses? Yes, we do have public IP addresses. So what is a private IP address? Yes. So that is the reason we should be have something called private IP address and public IP address. All right. We all are aware that the IP addresses, IPv4 addresses are depleting very fast. All right. And there is a necessity to have more IP addresses. And that was the time we never had IPv6 at all. So the one of the solutions is to have private and public IP addresses, which means when you have got any IP, for instance, our very famous IP is 192.168.10 and /24. Do you remember? So this 192.168, all right. So if any IP starts with 192, which means these IPs cannot be routed over internet. Okay, so very similar to maybe your register number. Okay, so if you have your register number, the register number is valid only within Karunya. For instance, if not to specifically talk about one person, but let me say there is a person called UR20CS1001. Okay, assume that there is one person at the first year. That is his register number. So this register number is unique within Karunya, and you cannot claim that this register number is unique in the world. The reason is there could be another institute having the same register number. All right. So now this register number is not going to be unique, and hence this register number cannot be used to identify a person uniquely in the world. In other words, in Karnya, this will denote one person, but this register number will not denote a person in Gandhipuram bus stand or in Hyderabad bus stand, because this number may be existing elsewhere in another university, or it could be the identity number of somebody who is having a Airtel TV subscription. All right, so there is a possibility. So how are we solving that problem? We have got Aadhaar number, a driving license number, passport number. They all are going to identify you uniquely, but this register number will not identify uniquely outside Karunya. Very similar to that, your private IP addresses, they have the scope only within your local area network, or in other words, only within your network, and they don't have scope outside. So when the packets are carrying this as the from address or to address, they cannot travel over the internet. I repeat, the machines, the packets which are carrying these IP addresses cannot travel over internet. How can we solve that? Yeah, we have a very interesting and important concept called NAT, that is network address translation, which will be talking soon in this class. All right. Second one, which I missed out to talk to you, is about the root aggregation. What is that root aggregation? You have got some four IP addresses, for example, on the left hand side. Okay, one is 223.16.0.18.0.20.0.30.0 and so on, right? And you could see one line, it says all these IP addresses can be represented by a single IP address. How is it possible? This is called root aggregation. Okay. If you wanted to get a vague idea of what it is just the reverse of your subnetting logically. Okay, not practically, but logically it is a reverse of subnetting. What happens in the case of subnetting? You have got something like, if the mask is 24, after subnetting your mask will become 25 or /28 and so on. Okay, but what happens in the case of root aggregation, or in other words root summarization? This happens in the reverse order. So I'll explain to you with the numbers on the screen. So what am I going to do? I'm going to write this this IP address using binary, okay, mixed binary, which we normally do for learning purpose. So 16 is 128, 64, 32, 16. Okay, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, forgive me. It's going to be 128, 64, 32. Okay, it is 16, 1, 0, 0. Okay, dot 0 slash 23. Okay, and I'm going to write this as the binary, mixed binary, 223. What is 18? 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2. Okay, and then dot 0 slash 23. Hope you understand what I'm writing. If I want to write the 20, 0, 0, 0, that's again going to be 16, 8, and 4 I need. Okay, 0, 0, dot 0. And 30, if I write 128, 64, 32, 16, so 24, that is 8 plus 4, 28, and then 230 and 0 dot 0, right? So I have just written these values in the binary value. Okay, all are 23. Now look at from the left hand side. Okay, from the left hand side we have to see where what are till which place we have got common values. Okay, or in other words, till which place we have got the string unchanged. Okay, so if you want me to write, I'll probably use this space to write. You have got 200 same in all the four IP, 23 is same in all the four IP, all the four IP starts with 0. The third octet I'm talking about, 0, 0, 0, 1. And after that it changes because you have got 0 here, you have got 1 here, and then from then the change happens. So after that they are not common, and then you got 0. Right. Now how can I do the aggregation? This is 223. If I write this in the decimal, 128, 64, 32, 16. Okay, so if I write this in the decimal, I write here 200, 23, 16, and all the rest are 0. What will be the mask? You have got 8 bits here common. So 8 plus 8 plus 4, that is 20. Okay, the mask becomes 20. So this is the where supernet, this is our, in other words, this is where aggregated root. You can see the same thing, 200, 23, 16, 0 slash 20. So this is called root aggregation, or in other words, this will be root summarization. All right, summarization. All right. Okay. Why should I do the summarization? Remember that you are working with the routers where the routing tables are very, very crucial for routing process. All right. Now you have got one network, another organization, another organization, another organization. They all are having separate network addresses. So if you need to have separate entries in the routing table for every organization, even in this example, you may have to get roughly around 10 plus net entries. But if you go for summarization, all these 10 plus entries can be denoted by this single network address called 223.16.0. That will match. That will go for longest prefix matching. Okay, this is for root aggregation. Okay, how do we get IP address? Okay, we have got ICANN, Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. You can read more about ICANN in icann.org. It allocates the IP address, it manages DNS, it does a lot when you look at the IP address. All right. Now we are a machine. Okay, I am a new machine which is connected to the network. How am I going to get the IP address? Okay, so after finishing this, we'll go back and talk about ETL. Right. So how does one machine get the IP address? There are multiple ways. Bootless machine or diskless systems have its own boot protocol and XOSR methodology. But generally, a computer, a personal computer, when it is connected to the network, how does it get the IP address? All right. So how are we getting? By using a protocol called Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, DHCP. Very simple but very important protocol. All right. So to talk about this DHCP protocol, I wanted to give a demonstration, and then we'll come back and see what exactly happens. All right. So all right. So I use this um, topology to explain to you how does DHCP work. For that, I have made one of the servers as a DHCP server. All right. And you look at this machine is not assigned with any IP address, and another machine have assigned. No, these two machines I haven't assigned IP address, right? And what are the steps I have done? I have gone to the DHCP service here. All right, in the DHCP service I have configured certain values. One is I have put the default gateway as 192.168.1.254, and the DNS server IP is 192.168.1.1. It is only for data sake. And I say you can start assigning IP address from number 2, which means if somebody is requesting you an IP address, you can give 192.168.1.2. If somebody else is also asking, you 1.3, another person comes 1.4, like that you can give. And I also have configured that you have to give a maximum of 50 IP, nothing more. So this is a simple configuration I have made in this server, right? Now I go to this machine and see what happens when I go for the DHCP. Have I done? No. So I just opened DHCP. So it is requesting the IP address, right? So I open the packet. um, is it opening? Yeah. So this is opening. You can see I want you to be little um, careful in noting those points, right? This is the layer 2. Forget about that. Layer 2 we haven't dealt. We'll go to the layer 3, that is IP. Now we are all comfortable with the IP address. What is the source IP address? Source IP address is 0000, because I haven't got IP address. Please remember the complexity or the difficulty somebody is facing when he's not having IP address, because the 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 important characteristics when you talk about DHCP protocol is something critical. Very importantly, DHCP protocol gives you IP address. All right, but the problem here is you have to get IP address from DHCP server. But I'm a new person. You can assume that you close your eyes, you are getting into a room, and you don't have a name, and you want to talk to someone who can give you the name. You have to identify him where DHCP server is, and you have to get your IP address, right? Now the machine is not having IP address, so there is a deadlock here. What is the deadlock? In order to get IP address, you should communicate to someone. But if you want to communicate to someone, you should have the IP address. I hope you could understand the difficulty the machine is facing at present. Sir, you don't have IP address. So you need IP address so that you can communicate to others. Perfect. But from where will you get the IP address? From somebody else. How will you get IP address? You have to talk to him and get. How will you talk to him? You don't have IP address. So this is the tricky things. All right. Now, how can we solve this tricky issue? That initially, as soon as you get into a room where you do not know anyone, what happens? You are just shouting, "Hello, I'm a new person. Give me a name." Think that logic. That will exactly fit here. So this machine initially is sending a broadcast message. Hope remember what is the broadcast address. 255 is a broadcast address. All right. So initially it sends a broadcast message, and source port is 68, destination port is 67, which means DHCP server is running at port number 67, and I'm sorry, yeah, and DHCP client is running at port number 63, and it uses UDP. So this much information you can get from this simple line. Okay, these two line will give you this much, will reveal you that much information. And it is a broadcast message. Remember, it's a broadcast message. Source IP is 0000, destination is a broadcast IP, source port number is 68, destination port number is 67. Because it is, I'm sorry, because it is a broadcast message, what happens next? You can see the packet is forwarded to everyone else than the source. Because it is a broadcast message, switches are forwarding the broadcast message out to all the person except the sender. That is the reason the packet is sent to the server as well as to the client. And you can see, not client, the another computer, but you can see this computer drops the packet. You can see by seeing this int mark, but the other person accepts this. So what could be the reason? We can consult the packet. Why have you dropped that packet? You can see that in layer 2. Okay, don't worry, layer 2. Layer 3, the packet's destination IP address is matching with device IP address or broadcast. Okay, please remember, a machine is going to process your packet on two conditions. Okay, one is the destination IP is your IP, or the destination IP is a broadcast IP. Okay, so IP layer forwards the packet, it receives, processes it, sends to the upper layer. What happens at the transport layer? There is no service running, listening on this port. The device drops the segment. Okay, port number 67 is not running on this device. Hence, the packet is dropped. But you can see the server is accepting it. What does the server do? Same logic. You can look at this. The device discapsulates the PDU from the UDP and sends to the upper layer. Isn't it clear? So this is the first message which is sent. This is called DHCP discovery message. Okay, it's a discovery message. It's not a request message. It's a discovery message, right? And what happens in layer 3? We'll see. Now, what is supposed to be done? This packet has to forward, has to send the packet, has to send a response. Okay, we'll open and see what happens in this response. uh, why is it not getting opened? Okay. Okay, you can't see that. I'm sorry. I'll permit this to go further. Okay, it has gone. And this packet also has been forwarded to both the place. I open this packet. Okay, DHCP source is 192.168.1.1. That is our server's IP, and it is sent. All right, and inbound PDU. Where is your DHCP? Okay, DHCP hasn't given the IP address. Now DHCP is offering on IP 192.168.1.3. So this is called DHCP offer. I hope I have made it clear. Initially, you have made a DHCP discovery. Now this is the offer message. The server says you can take 192.168.1.3. You should ask a question, sir. What about 1.2? I was earlier checking with this, all right, and I was checking, and it was assigned 1.1 earlier. That's why 1.2 earlier. That's why it is offering 1.3. All right. Now I go for the third message. This is DHCP request message. So initially DHCP discovery, then DHCP offer. Now the third is DHCP request, which says, sir, please give me this IP address. Okay, that's the meaning. Again, that is a broadcast message. The server response, have we got the IP address so far? No, we haven't got IP address so far. Response is received. Yes, response is received. Now you can see the IP address received. It has got 192.168.1.3. Default subnet mask is this, default gateway is this, and so on. Right. So this is how your DHCP is running. All right, so this is what exactly happening when you talk about your DHCP machines. So I come here, we'll talk about the theory. Having understood, having looked at the demo of DHCP, you can read this point, you can easily understand. It allows the host to dynamically get the IP address from server when it joins the network. Okay. It can renew its lease on address in use. Okay. It allows reuse of address. Of course, there are all some other interesting points about DHCP. It also supports for mobile. Okay. And then DHCP overview, you have got discover message, offer message, request message, and then acknowledgement message, right? So this is what I have demonstrated using Packet Tracer. Okay, so I go to the next one. All right, so to understand more about the DHCP client server interaction scenario, probably this sequence diagram will help you. This is the arriving host, new machine is coming. So source IP is all zero with port number as 68, that is DHCP client port number. Destination is 255.255.255.255, which is a broadcast address with 67. It's a DHCP discover. Then you got the offer message. It says, why can't you use 223.124? And then arriving client accepts this offer and it says, okay sir, let me use this, and then it gives the acknowledgement. Remember, the third message also has the source message as 0000. The reason is the IP is not yet assigned, it is only the offer. All right, now you should ask a question. So what is the necessity of the third and fourth message? Somebody is requesting a message, IP address, the server responds with the IP address, now the story is over. Why do we need another two message? Please remember, please understand, there could be more than one DHCP server running in a network. Now, being a client who comes newly, I send a broadcast message. I am blindfolded and I send a broadcast message, right? So broadcast message will reach server 1 and server 2. I said there are two DHCP servers, for instance. So server 1 also receives, server 2 also receives. Both of them may send the DHCP offer message. One person may give, boss, you can use 223.124. The other person may give, boss, you can use 223.128.82. Both are in the same subnet, different IP address are given. Now I have got two offers. All right, now I should choose one. So I choose one and I send that as the response that I'm going to use it. Now if there are two DHCP servers I'm talking about, so first server, okay, I'll use this one to explain. So there is only one client who is coming, but there are two servers. Okay, for the request he is offering 2.4. This person is offering 2.80. This is the client. Okay, and this is server 1, this is server 2. Now he is offering 2.4, he is offering 2.80. Now he chooses assume 2.4. So he sends the response that I am going to use 2.4. So that also has to go as a broadcast message. The reason is this person should know that I can give that IP to the common pool, because somebody else may request, I can give this IP. What is the need of the fourth message, acknowledgement message? Okay, now the server should accept this request and then, okay, you can use 2.4. The reason is the offer will be valid only for some specific amount of time. In this example, it is given as 3600 seconds. Okay, it offer is available only if the server is not accepting or his request is not coming in the specific time. This 2.4 will be taken back to the common pool by the server 1 also. And if the server shows that, okay, my request is approved, that my request is granted, server is sending the acknowledgement message, that is the fourth message. Okay, this is what happening in your dynamic host configuration protocol. Hope I have made it clear. um, all right, so DHCP is not only giving IP address, as you could see, it gives the IP address, it gives the mask, okay, and DNS server IP, default gateway, all these four information are given in the DHCP. Okay, next comes the NAT, which I'm not going to talk today, because I have told you that I'll be talking also about the TTL field. Okay, um, so I take this one. Okay. Uh, Use this. Yeah, I'm not going to use this. Right. So what is the speciality of TTL? We said TTL stands for time to live. Okay. This time is not in milliseconds or microseconds. No, the time is the number of hops. What is a hop? The if a packet comes, this is the first router, this is the second router, this is the destination. Okay, this is the source. Now the packet comes. Once it crosses this router, it has made one hop. Once it crosses the other router, it has made two hops. So this packet from this machine needs to make two hops to reach the destination. That is the meaning of hop. Okay. So your IP header has the TTL field, okay, which specifies the number of hops. All right. So what is the necessity of number of hops in the TTL header? I also said, and we also learned that TTL is used to avoid routing loop. Routing loop has to be avoided. All right. So I'm going to give a simple scenario, but this is only for understanding sake. It cannot happen in the real world, but just for understanding sake. Okay. So this is for Karunya entry point. So kids entry main gate. Okay, from the Sirvani road, this is the entry, and your road comes here, and it makes a turn, and you got your CCD. Could you recall? Yes, you have got a CCD, and you got your flight, Cessna flights stationed here. A road goes here, and here you could see the admin building. Please don't worry about the scaling. Okay, admin building, and here a road is leading towards the another road. Okay, you got the ladies hostel here, SNH block and triple E block. Hope you could recall. You haven't forgotten this them. Okay. Um, Somewhere here you also have got biotech building, and there is a road which is also connecting this way. And your old Dow building, that is where CTC is here, and your EC building is here. Okay, don't scale it, but this is your central library comes CTC, and this line also is connecting. And our building is here, all right. And you also have mechanic MBA here and other things. So this is our CSC block. Imagine that road. Now I'm going to concentrate this place. Okay. So, and I'm also going to assume that there is a security guard standing here. Another security guard is standing here. There is no reason, but still there is another security guard standing here. There is, so there are four security guards standing here, and a parent comes by walking. Okay, he wants to talk, meet his daughter. Okay, a father comes to meet his daughter, and it was 5 o'clock in the evening. So no, daughter is in the ladies hostel. Now he is somehow managed to come to this place, and he has no idea how he can reach the ladies hostel main gate to meet his daughter. And he's asking a question to this person. Okay, he's a security guard. He's asking, sir, can you help me? In which direction should I move to reach the ladies hostel? Now this person has got three way in front of him. One is towards ladies hostel, the another one is towards our building, the third is towards the main administration building. Now he knows very clearly that this is the path. He says, sir, take this way. Okay. Now from this place, he is moving this direction. Now he is asking a question to this security guard, sir, how can I reach the release hostel? He is given a wrong information. He is a new security guard who joined only the previous day, and he knows nothing, but he didn't want to show that off. He says, sir, take this way. Okay. So the father is directed to take this way, and the security guard standing here also is assumed to be new, and he says, sir, go this direction. And this security guard knows the route. He says, sir, you have come in the wrong direction, just go straight, then you can ask the person. Okay, so this poor father, okay, he goes all the way here, then he comes here, then he comes here, and in this direction. Now this security guard has got short-term memory loss. You know what is short term memory loss? All right. So this person has forgotten. Okay, this the security guard here forgot that he has already seen him. He said, "Sir, go this direction." Okay. Now this person is made to go this direction, and this security guard another. So the parent and the security guard, they have the short-term memory loss, but all are assumptions only for understanding certain logic. Okay. Now what happens? This father makes a circle like this, and then goes around and goes around. Okay. Now you could see that this person is going to walk like this, like a mad. All right. So making a full circle again and again and again and again. And theoretically, this person is not going to reach the destination at all. All right. And if there is only one person, it's fine. Assume that there are 10 such parents are walking. To make the situation worse, 25 or 50 such parents are working along with wife and husband, all put together, mother and father, both are working. You could see some 200 people are walking, making a circle. All right. This is what a routing loop. Okay. Now come to our logic. All these four security people are routers. Okay. By by some reason, these routers are misconfigured. So packets are making this way. Okay. And they are making a loop. This is called routing loop. Okay. So how can we solve this? This cannot be solved by some vague means, because nobody knows, the routers are not having any awareness that this packet has already come through me. No, they don't have any remembrance about the packet, because it's all stateless. They are all just machines. They just process the packet, right? Now the packets which are caught up in the routing loop are just going to waste the bandwidth. They are not going to meet the destination. So what is the simple solution? The packets which are caught in the routing loop must be killed mercilessly. In other words, the packets have to be dropped, so that you can save the bandwidth, you can preserve the bandwidth. All right. And the packets also is not going to make its way, so there is no use with the packet run. All right. This is what exactly happening when you are using the number of hops, or in other words TTL. Okay. So every packet, every IP packet is initially is given as field called TTL value. In the example which you have seen in the previous class, we have set the TTL field as 128. Hope you remember that. Once the packet crosses the router, the router opens the packet, changes the TTL value by TTL. New TTL becomes TTL minus 1. Simple formula. Number is reduced. So 128 is reduced to 127. Then it is reduced to 126, 125, and so on. Okay. And if a packet is caught in the routing loop, this TTL field is getting reduced again and again and again, and eventually it will reach zero somewhere. Okay. Once the TTL field becomes zero, the packet is dropped. This packet has no eligibility to travel further in the internet. All right. This is where the packet is getting dropped. All right. This is how the routing loop is avoided. The primary important primary functionality of your TTL field. Okay. And for your homework or for your self learning, what is the relationship between TTL field and your traceroute command? You have your traceroute command in Windows, TRECERT. If it is in Linux, it is traceroute, ROUTE. You know that. And you also know what is the use of traceroute command. Now try to find the relationship between time to leave field of IP header and the traceroute command. That will reveal some interesting concepts to you. Okay, I stop here. It is 10:45. Thanks for your time. And I also stop sharing. And I stop recording.